And just before we get started then, you or Emmeline is going to retain the host privileges, or are those going over to me?
Whatever your pleasure.
I mean, I think, you know, you kept them during our practice run in the last meeting. I think that worked pretty well.
Okay.
So why don't we try that, and then, you know, that way I can stay focused on this stuff, and if there's any issues, we'll just deal with it on the fly.
Okay. Then I believe we are ready to begin.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. So I'll call the meeting to order. This is the May 26, 2020 meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission for the town of Fairfield. The first item on our agenda are bills and communications. And we'll start with 1537, 1571 Stratfield Road, request of Sunrise Senior Living for 100% release of an $87,020 bond pertaining to special exception improvements in an R3 zone.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is the site of the Sunrise Assisted Living Facility approved in 2017. You do have an email from the engineering department in your file, or in the attachments that I sent you, that said that it was always completed. There was an issue that came to light today that I think Mr. Corcoran may wish to address, but the engineering issues are all accounted for.
So, Mr. Chairman, I noted that the facility is outlined in lights. I'm not sure if that's according to our regulations, and I'd like the staff to look at that before we proceed with the releasing the bond. So if we could table the motion, I propose that. Okay.
Well, you're entitled to make a motion, and this is not time sensitive. So, if you'd like to move to table.
Yes, I would.
Okay. So, all right. Motion to table, seconded by. Hold on one second, Tom. Seconded by Commissioner Braun. I heard that. So, Commissioner Braun, you seconded the motion?
Yes. I don't know if I'm mute or not, but yeah, I did.
Thank you. Well, now you're not. I hear you. Thank you. So, Commissioner Corcoran, you can start. Commissioner Braun, then Commissioner Noonan.
So, I just noted that there seemed to be the building is outlined in lights. I'm not sure that's according to our regulations. I'd like staff to look into that before we consider the bond release.
Okay, and by that you mean not? I know they had a lighting plan. That's actually something. One of the things that you know, we were kind of focused on because of the neighbors, right, and the way the building is situated.
That's exactly my concern. They've
muted.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry. Pause for a moment there, Commissioner Corcoran.
I think I inadvertently
was that the?
Everybody. I don't know what I did.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. I think he's speaking about the conference line. That recording was, I think, in the.
Oh, got it.
In the bridge.
I can still hear it. It's fine.
Okay.
So anyway, my issue is that it appears that they have tacked up a strings of lights along the fascia boards of the building. It outlines the building, and you know, the neighbors were concerned about the building being screened and not obvious. This has the opposite effect, highlights the building, and again, I don't think it's according to our regulations.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Braun? You're muted, Commissioner Braun.
I got it.
Got it. Go ahead.
I just repeat what Commissioner Corcoran said.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Noonan, anything else?
Nothing. I'm happy for the table, considering what Commissioner Corcoran said, and if there's an issue, we can address it next meeting.
Right. Yeah, very good. Like I said, there's no time sensitivity to this. It's the first time it's come up, and I think it's a good inquiry to make sure that everything is according to plan, and if there are concerns, that those are either responded to or addressed. I support it. Any other comments or questions before we go to a vote? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to table, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The item is tabled unanimously. Forgive me, I'm toggling between all the various documents on my screen. The next item is, and using two computers, right? One for the Zoom and one for the document. The next item is Cherry Street. It's a referral on a petition to abandon a town right-of-way.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this Cherry Street is an unimproved paper street that runs northerly from Kings Highway Cutoff. If you're familiar with Circle Collision is in Fairfield Automatic Transmission, it's between the two. It used to extend all the way up to Kings Highway Cutoff, but it was in the northerly portion was abandoned back in 1980. We don't see any use for this, that it would ever become an improved road, since 2/3 of it have already been abandoned. It dead ends at the Bed Bath & Beyond parking lot. And this is a referral. You're making a recommendation as to whether you think it's appropriate for the town to abandon this right of way or not. It ultimately has to get on the RTM agenda. So a positive referral means a simple majority vote of the RTM. A negative referral would require a 2/3 majority of the RTM. But in looking at this, Public Works and Engineering, they don't see any reason to maintain this. There's an existing drainage pipe there, and they're showing on their map a proposed drainage easement over that within the right-of-way. And so when this is abandoned, it would get split between the adjoining abutters. So again, this is we don't see any reason for the town to maintain this. It's been occupied by those adjacent businesses for many years, and it really wouldn't change the use of the property. It would just put it under their respective ownerships. So you would be making a recommendation as to a positive or negative disposition of this referral to the Board of Selectmen, and we would recommend a positive disposition.
Okay. Thank you for that. Can I have a motion? I have a few questions.
This is Stephen Levy. I'd move to refer to the RTM, the abandonment of Cherry Street, Paper Street.
Positive recommendation.
Positive recommendation, yes.
Okay. So moved by Commissioner Levy.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Noonan. Very good. Commissioner Levy, anxious to hear your insight on this one.
I drove by the site yesterday. I'm also familiar with both of the establishments that are there, and clearly they've been using this paper street for many years for the conduct of their business. Since it's already been abandoned on the northerly side, where Bed Bath & Beyond, it's a street to nowhere, and I cannot see any benefit that the town would retain as long as they have the easement for drainage by maintaining this paper street.
So does the abandonment, do we have to undertake some separate action to obtain the easement? I mean, I suppose an easement by prescription, right? If it's just there and we continue to use it, but do we want to actually get a written, recorded drainage easement in addition to an express abandonment?
I assume that's something the RTM and the town attorney would facilitate.
Yes, I would agree.
Okay. Do we think
it's implied as part of their application, but I think as part of the recommendation, if you are to make a favorable recommendation, your recommendation could include the the finalization of the proposed drainage easement.
Right, and to be filed, on the public land record.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay. So do you want to amend your motion in that regard, Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, and that the recommendation also include that the RTM and the town attorneys formalize the reservation of the drainage easement, and it be recorded on the land records of the town of Fairfield.
Thanks. Commissioner Noonan, you agree with that?
I do.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay, hold on. So we have Commissioner Brayman, then Commissioner Francis. Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question I have is, since the other portion of Cherry Street was abandoned 40 years ago, why the request is being made at this time to abandon the remaining portion? What prompted the request, if that is known?
Yeah,
Well,
that's a good question. And why wasn't, if we abandoned the other section in the first place, why did we reserve this piece, down the line? Why didn't we do it all at once at the same time?
Yeah, that's a good question. Back in 1980, when that was done, so 40 years ago, there were a number of parcels that were owned at that time by the Jacuzzi family, long before Bed Bath & Beyond was even developed. And they wanted to consolidate their properties. They own the land on either side. They were the majority abutter at the time, and so when they petitioned, they only petitioned for the portion of the right-of-way that they abutted. They didn't petition on behalf of the southerly abutters. And now, it's been obviously a long period of time. We've got that Bed Bath & Beyond development, and the adjoiners now are saying, hey, why don't we just finish the abandonment? I don't know if there's any present plan for anything, but I think, it makes their pieces slightly more valuable to have that strip in their ownership that they've been occupying all this time. And so I don't know that there's any other motivation beyond that, but we don't see any reason for the town to maintain ownership.
Understood. And I guess a follow-up question to that, Mr. Warren, would be whether the town customarily requires anything in exchange for the abandonment of a paper street other than, an easement of drainage.
No, it's my understanding that, if the land was reserved or set aside on, as a dedicated right-of-way for public road access, we can't, if you're asking is there a fee, we can't sell it. We can either maintain it as a town right-of-way for the intention of roadway purposes, but we can't, and then we can abandon it. We can't sell it as a real estate transaction.
Okay.
So I guess the answer to the question is no.
Anyone else?
It's either a yes or a no question, and if there's drainage, we get an easement. Otherwise, it's just abandoned.
Very good. Thank you.
Who's the petitioner?
The petitioners are the owners of the adjacent properties to the east and west, the owners of Circle Collision and the owners of Fairfield Automatic Transmission.
And they've been using it anyway. I mean, it's not even going to change the physical.
Yeah, you won't see a difference physically, visually.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Francis.
I wanted to verify that engineering has checked there are no other utilities under the site, no electric, no gas, no water, nothing, just drainage.
That's correct. They have, yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor say, so the motion is to refer positively to the RTM to abandon the right-of-way and to reserve an easement for drainage, and with instructions that if the RTM Board of Selectmen go forward, that they formalize that with filings on the land records. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Commissioner Wagner? Excuse me, it's Peter Elliott.
Yes.
I'm on
Who
line.
was that?
I got on late.
Hello.
Here, so I'm on the line. Yes. Hello.
You're on. Terrific.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is zoning compliances and coastal site plan applications. The first is 101 Kenwood Avenue, application of BK Athletics, Inc. to establish an indoor recreational use personal training facility in a portion of an existing building in the design industrial district.
Okay. This property fronts on both Kenwood Avenue and Ardmore Street and is located across from Mohegan Valley Concrete, if you know where that is, down on that neck of the woods. For many years, the existing building was home for a machine tool shop. It's presently vacant. BK Athletics is a personal training business that's currently a tenant in Sportsplex. They are proposing to move to this location and occupy 3,800 square feet for their use. There are no changes in the building or site proposed. There are 24 parking spaces on site, which is adequate for their proposed use in the remaining currently vacant industrial space. So they're just looking to move from Sportsplex over to this currently vacant building on Kenwood Avenue, accessed via Ardmore Street. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any questions.
Excellent, thank you. I'm having trouble just getting back to this. Very good. Can I have a motion on this? Get us started.
Stephen Levy?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Noonan and seconded by Commissioner Levy.
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Noonan, you want to start?
Please. Quick question to staff. I assume that this use is permitted in the zone?
It is. It's classified as an indoor recreational facility, and it's in the same zone as it's currently in Sportsplex. It's an industrial district.
I recommend approving the application. It meets our regulations, permitted use. I see no reason to deny it.
Right. Thank you. Commissioner Levy, anything to add?
Nothing further.
Okay, good. I agree. This meets all our regulations, and it is permitted. Any other questions or comments? I'm trying to keep an eye on
I assume there's
raising
no
hands.
traffic,
The trees,
personal training facility, so there wouldn't be additional traffic burden on the neighborhood?
Well, there'll be some. I mean, there's adequate, our regulations require one space for every 200 square feet, and they have that, so they have the adequate parking. So yeah, vacant, but I mean, there would.
Right.
So yeah, there'll be a slight uptick in traffic.
With applications
It's a
like this.
personal training though, not a gym.
Correct.
I think it's a CrossFit.
Yeah, they do personal training, and they have some small levels of classroom, but again, overall, I mean, a permitted use in the zone that meets our parking standard is presumed that the streets are adequate to carry their prospective traffic. Right.
Typically with applications like this, we don't see traffic studies to prove that the streets are capable of handling the increased traffic. It's zoned for the use, and it's permitted, and they have the parking requirements.
question?
Any other questions? Yes. Who was that? Commissioner Francis?
Yes, are the tree planting requirements met with their 24 spaces? I would think there'd be a couple of trees.
They're not proposing to
They're
change.
very strict.
Yeah, they're not proposing any changes to the site. It exists at present at 24 spaces. They're not adding any additional pavement, so they're not required to retroactively add trees.
So they don't have to comply if nothing is changing.
Correct.
Correct. It's just for the use. Other questions? Okay, ready to vote? This is a motion to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? This application is approved unanimously. Thank you, guys. Next is 26 Lighthouse Point coastal site plan application of Eric Dilaurentis for the construction of a single-family dwelling in the Beach District.
Okay, let me know. I have the documents up that I can screen share if anybody needs to see it, so let me know. The proposal entails the demolition of an existing single-family dwelling in the construction of a new elevated dwelling on essentially the same footprint of the existing house. All the Beach District requirements are met, and the new house will be elevated and FEMA compliant. The materials that we provided to you included a referral response from the Connecticut DEEP indicating that they didn't see any inconsistencies with coastal management policies. And given that, that is our recommendation to approve this coastal site plan as the new house will be elevated on piers and be FEMA compliant. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion on this?
This is Tommy Noonan, move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Noonan. And a second.
Stephen Levy, second.
Thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Levy. Commissioner Noonan, any comments?
No comments. Detail regulations, staff recommends it. Connecticut DEP didn't have an issue. No reason to deny it.
Very good. Commissioner Levy?
Just one question of staff. There's a public access way immediately to the west at Lighthouse Point. Will this impact that in any way?
It will not.
Okay. Nothing further.
Thank you. I agree. Anyone else have any other comments?
One question,
Very straightforward. Yes. Who's that? Commissioner Francis?
is the cottage in front of this, is this all one property, the house that's going to be constructed and the cottage in front of it?
No,
It looks on the map like it was property.
All right, hang on one second. I'm going to screen share a document here.
The cottage was labeled 1484.
All right, stand by. All right, can everybody see that image?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so in the aerial photo, I tried to outline in red the property that we're talking about, and on the roof, I have a number 26 labeled there.
Mm-hmm.
So Lighthouse Point is one house removed. This house is kind of landlocked, literally landlocked from any roadway. Lighthouse Point is the public right-of-way that Commissioner Levy just referenced. This house is one house removed from that. So that shows you the footprint of the existing house that's there at 26 Lighthouse Point, and that's the property that's going to be replaced. And hopefully, Meg, does that answer your question?
Can't hear you. Doesn't look muted. Commissioner Francis? think she was disconnected. I now see a triangle with an exclamation point.
Yeah, I'm getting a low bandwidth message on that. Meg, if you can still hear, you can call in the call-in number that I emailed to everybody that you'll be able to be heard.
Okay, this is our first official wrinkle.
Yes.
She's now got 2 squares on my screen, neither of which have video. Commissioner Francis? Okay. Emmeline, are you calling her?
I will. Hold on.
You could give her the, worst case, give her the dial-in number.
Nope. There we go. Commissioner Francis.
She's back.
You're back. Commissioner Francis. Can you hear me?
Apparently not.
We can see you. Can you hear us?
She appears to be on the phone with Emmeline at the moment.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I just touch in.
Yes.
Mr. Francis.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Well, hopefully, did that image share answer your question?
Oh, I never got it. The tablet just blacked out. I don't know. And I did nothing. I just sat here. It's all one property, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
It's all one property, isn't it?
Yes, it's a landlocked parcel. There's only one house on this particular parcel. It's landlocked.
Oh. Because the map I got they drew the property line around both the cottage and the house, and I wondered if it was one parcel, but it's not. It's 2. 1494, what the cottage is marked, so it must be separate.
Yeah, I'm not sure which cottage you're referring to, but this is a single standalone parcel that's landlocked.
Yeah. And, yeah. It's been demolished already. A lot of boulders back there. Okay.
All right. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, this one seems pretty straightforward. We're in compliance. The EEP has no comments. It's consistent with the coastal regulations. And the motion is to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The application is approved unanimously. The next item is 1492 Fairfield Beach Road, coastal site plan application of Thomas Mason for the construction of a single-family dwelling in the Beach District.
Okay, this proposal entails the demolition of an existing single-family dwelling on the creek side of Fairfield Beach Road and the construction of a new elevated dwelling. In order to be able to establish a FEMA-compliant open pier foundation, an existing retaining wall is to be removed. The proposal is compliant with the Beach District requirements. The Connecticut DEEP has reviewed this plan, finds no coastal management inconsistencies. there was a lengthier reply to this that represents.
All right, hold on one second, Mr. Went.
Yeah.
If not talking right now, can you please mute? And also, please remember to put your phones on vibrate.
Okay, so we did
Thanks.
get a
Go ahead.
the DEP or DEEP has no coastal management inconsistencies. They did have a requirement because some of the grading that's proposed here is within the coastal jurisdiction line that it needs a certificate of permission from the DEEP. The applicant is in the process of submitting that application. So we would recommend a condition of approval should be that no work can be done below the coastal jurisdiction line until the applicant has attained that permit. That is in process, and we expect that to be reviewed and approved. That is all I have, unless there's any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion on this?
This is Tommy Noonan. Move to approve with staff recommendations of for the condition of.
Very good. Thank you. Motion to approve with the condition as stated by Commissioner Noonan.
Commissioner Levy, I'll second.
Right. Thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Levy. Commissioner Noonan?
Nothing further to add.
Okay. Commissioner Levy?
Same.
Okay. I'll note that, you know, as with the other applications, this meets all the requirements. Reviewed by DEP. The only condition is one we've made part of the motion. And I'll note here that specifically the CAM report, you know, indicated the majority of the inquiries here were just simply not applicable. So I think this is a very straightforward application, which we should approve. Any other questions or comments about this application? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. The application is approved unanimously. The next item on our agenda is our public hearing. This is going to be 78 Umpqua Place, zoning compliance application of Fairfield Station Lofts, LLC, pertaining to a 26-unit residential building pursuant to Section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes in the Center Design Business District. Interestingly, I don't have to say, do we need a minute to reconfigure? Because everyone is already at their posts. And I will turn it over to Mr. Fallon
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
yes,
before Mr. Fallon unmutes himself and to present, I just wanted to make a note that anybody that's on the conference call line, that once the public presentation in the commission has answered or asked all the questions, there'll be an opportunity, you'll be unmuted if you have public comment to share with the commission. It would be helpful that if you know you might want to speak at any point, if you hear something that you want addressed, you can send an email to the TPZ Commission inbox that at least let me know, or give me a speakers list, basically, if you want to be heard. It's not required, but it would be helpful. And that email is tpzcommission@fairfieldct.org. Once again, tpzcommission@fairfieldct.org. Just to let you, don't have to tell me what you want to say, just that, hey, I'd like to speak. So when we get to the public comment period, I'll have a list of folks that may want to comment. Other than that, I'll turn it. I'm going to screen share the presentation, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Fallon.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and I would also just add to that also, if members of the public would like to simply email their comments to that address before the end of the close of the public hearing, then they can submit comments that way as well. Some people choose to, speak, and others to submit by email, but you don't have to speak if you don't want to. You can submit by directly in writing. Thank you. Okay. So, Mr. Fallon, if you want to unmute.
Sorry, that's not the most recent version of this drawing, but go ahead, John.
I'm not sure. I don't, since you started screen sharing, I don't see his, there he is. He's saying, it looks like he's trying to talk, but Ms. Fallon, you seem to be muted.
Let me stop sharing for a minute here. All right, you should
Okay, good. I can't unmute on the iPad when you're screen sharing, so.
Okay.
Anyway, for the record, I'm John Fallon, and I feel like an astronaut because we're making some history here tonight, and I'm pleased to be representing the Fairfield Station Lofts, LLC. Before I begin, I do want to commend the commission and the staff for all the work you've done so diligently over these past unprecedented months. And tonight, you know, trying to move matters forward, not been easy, and I just commend you for it. So we're going to make our presentation tonight. Obviously, this is a public hearing, so we're going to acquaint you with the project, and I'm going to make some opening remarks to set that stage. The applicant is Fairfield Station Lofts, LLC. We propose to construct a 22-unit multifamily residential development at the property, which is located at 78 Umpqua Place. I would want to note that the principal of Fairfield Station Lofts, who's on this meeting tonight, is Mr. Matt Finkel. He's a very experienced and well-regarded developer of multifamily housing throughout Fairfield County and elsewhere, who, among other ventures, has worked very closely with the Diocese of Bridgeport in rehabbing properties for residential and affordable residential use. The commission will know Matt and recall Matt also as the principal of 1675 Post Road, LLC, an affordable housing development that is presently under construction at the Post Road. We're very, very excited about this proposal. We think the proximity of this property, obviously, to the railroad station and the downtown makes it an ideal for the contemplated residential use. This commission has spent a great deal of time and emphasis over the past few years talking about transit-oriented development. Obviously, that's a national trend, and we feel this particular proposal embodies classically the benefits of transit-oriented development. The development will consist of 12 one-bedroom, 8 two-bedroom, and 6 three-bedroom units. It is a proposal that's submitted to you, as the call indicates, under the provisions of the Connecticut Affordable Housing Land Use Appeals Act, Section 8-30G. You'll note that in my booklet that you all have, the affordability plan that was submitted in accordance with the statute is found at pages 33 through 48 of our application submittal. We did make a presentation to the full Affordable Housing Committee on December 11th, 2019. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the committee has not been able to formally meet, but we do believe, and I think we are correct, that this, based upon the comments that were made that night, that the proposal was very well received by the committee, and you may have received, or I know Mr. Reber did send in a letter, you may have received other comments from some of the members of the committee supporting the application. We have noted on our plans the designation of the specific affordable units pursuant to the statute, and in accordance with Jan Reber's very thoughtful comments, we certainly will amend our affordability plan to make sure those units are in fact noted in the affordability plan. You did receive earlier this afternoon from Mark Barnhart an email also confirming that we submitted those specific units to the Affordable Housing Committee. Mr. Reber's other comment was, Fairfield Holdings, who we designate in the affordability plan as the manager, we will certainly articulate a formal contact information for that entity as well. As an 8-30G proposal, as you, ladies and gentlemen, are aware, this is a situation where we have to dedicate for a period of 40 years under covenant 30% of the units, in this case, 8 units, to affordable status. What that means under the statute is that 4 units will be reserved for persons earning less than 60% of the statewide median income, and they are noted to be in the designation of units 2 one-bedroom units, 1 two-bedroom unit, and 1 three-bedroom units. You'll also note that we have 4 units which will be reserved for persons earning less than 80% of the statewide median income, and that again, those will be 2 one-bedroom units, 1 two-bedroom unit, and 1 three-bedroom unit. While not required to do so under the statute, we are designating one of our affordable units as a handicap accessible unit. We do that working in conjunction with the Affordable Housing Committee. We feel very strongly and are excited that based upon our experience, we anticipate that all these units, be they affordable or market rate, are going to be very, very attractive because of their location, as I said before, and also specifically for individuals maybe who are over 50 years old, empty nesters who want to downsize but still remain in Fairfield and keep their consumer and tax dollars in Fairfield, younger people, individuals who are looking also to stay or locate in Fairfield, especially proximate to mass transportation and the train station. And we do think it will also have further good impact in terms of the vibrancy of our already very exciting downtown. We've been committed, I think, as a town to increasing residential occupancy in the center district. This will be a great opportunity to do that as well. I don't have to belabor the need for affordable housing. I think by your actions on numerous applications, this commission has shown significant and constructive awareness of the need for affordable housing. I'm not going to go through the whole litany in my, again, application materials at pages 33 through 70. There's a lot of data that is supplied, which basically confirms that for a very long time in this community, we have identified the need and sought to address the need for affordable housing. But of course, despite efforts and good intentions, that certainly still remains. Right now, approximately 2.6% of our housing is affordable. And as I pointed out before, we do have the lowest percentage of affordable housing of the 22 block grant entitlement municipalities in the state. So I know we're making steps. I commend the commission for making those steps. But I think it's important that the record indicate that we still have a significant need for affordable housing here in Fairfield. And this will, as I said before, address specifically that affordable need for people over 50, younger people, and I think also will provide a great opportunity perhaps for some town employees who would like to reside within the community where they work and where affordable housing is always desired. I'm going to introduce Rich Granoff of Granoff Architects momentarily, and he'll go through the details of the site plan, the specific architectural design. He'll also talk to you about our construction phasing plan and how we intend to manage that. In its essence, the building is a total of 31,298 square feet. We worked collaboratively, I think, over the past many months with the fire chief and fire marshal with regard to the location of the building, making sure it's properly accessible to fire emergencies. We are going to, and the plans include the prevention or the inclusion of a fully sprinklered MFPA 13 system at the request of the chief and the fire marshal. You do have, as part of your record, I sent it to Mr. Went, I think earlier, and then again today, a letter from Versteeg Associates, Joseph Versteeg. It's dated March 9, 2020. He has appeared numerous times before the commission before. He's a former chief of the state fire marshal's office, and he has reviewed these plans. And his letter, he confirms, and I quote in part, that the project is in full compliance with current and proposed Connecticut State Building Code, Connecticut Fire Safety Code, and Connecticut State Fire Prevention Code. So we presented a building that I think is highly well-designed from a fire safety standpoint. With regard to parking, we're proposing 27 parking spaces on site. You received a letter, I think, earlier. I don't mean to prevision comments, but you did receive an email from our abutter. We look forward to working respectfully and constructively with our abutter, but let me just comment upon parking. Obviously, this is a transit-oriented development. We know, Mr. Finkel knows from prior experience, including current ongoing marketing at the Post Road location, that such transit-oriented development proposals, the marketing focus and the marketing demand is going to be in large part on commuters. We don't anticipate, based upon both practicality and experience, that we will have multi-vehicle occupants. We think this proposal is very similar to the proposal that you approved for the Post Road development. There you had 13 units, and you approved a site plan with 13 parking spaces. I think taking into consideration the fact that, again, a development so proximate to a commuter hub and downtown doesn't warrant to be overparked. As far as guests go, obviously guests will primarily visit in the evening, and I would point out that, again, this site is particularly well located because in the evening there's an abundance of overflow parking for guests who might come in the commuter lots, which are highly available after normal commuting hours. All property owners in the areas proximate to our train station have to manage their parking. I understand that there might be concern on the part of our neighbor relative to illegal parking from commuters and elsewhere. Indeed, I know that they, from time to time, actually have that lot monitored. We will do the same thing. That our parking is protected as theirs will be. But in the final analysis, the parking at the ratio that we're providing it, taking into consideration the nature of the development, is clearly more than adequate to meet the needs of this proposal. And indeed, without going deeply into the legal woods, it's also clear from recent case law with which the Commission, I think, is familiar, that the court has found that matters pertaining to parking and the adequacy of parking are matters that pertain to matters of convenience rather than public health and safety. And that was stated at both the trial court level and the appellate level in the Garden Homes case. However, here we're not in any way underparked. We have 27 spaces, and in this case, those units will be those parking spaces will be more than adequate to meet the needs of our residents. Mr. Finkel is a very knowledgeable and successful developer, and we're not going to design or propose a development where our prospective residents won't have adequate parking. So at this point, I'd like to pause, and I'd like to introduce Rich Granoff, who, again, will talk to you about the site plan, the architectural plan, and also our phasing plan based upon our plans working with our contractor. Rich.
Thank you, John. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good.
Can everybody hear Rich okay?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that introduction, John, and it's nice to be Zooming with all of you commissioners this evening. I think Jim's going to put up the proposal. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so I think that all of you, or most of you, are familiar with the site, which is adjacent to the MTA Metro North Railroad line, bordering on the eastbound side, and literally 100 yards from the eastbound commuter station, also diagonally across the street from the Fairfield Theater Company, and adjacent to a relatively new pediatric center on the south side. Currently, there's a house there with a garage behind, and when I was first introduced to the site, to me this was an obvious spot for transit-oriented affordable housing project. And as John mentioned, my partner, Matt Finkel, we are currently developing the Post Road lofts around the corner, and we've seen such a large demand for housing and affordable housing that when this project was presented to us, we thought it made a lot of sense for a similar type project. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all the details of the zoning exhibit. I'm sure you're familiar with it. But on the upper right is the unit breakdown, and that shows you that we're proposing 12 one-bedrooms, 8 two-bedrooms, and 6 three-bedrooms. And this is a very intentional mix based on the demand we've seen around the corner at the Post Road Lofts. The demand we've seen is incredibly huge for the larger units. At that development, we have one-bedrooms and two-bedrooms. And we're seeing such a big demand for the two bedrooms, and even people are asking if they can combine units, that we're seeing from a marketing standpoint a real demand for larger units, hence the mix of three-bedroom units into this proposed project. And if you scroll down or drop more, Jim, please. The affordable unit breakdown, this building with 26 units, we're proposing 8 affordable units. And you can see the mix on the lower right, where we've got 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and 1 bedroom mix, the same mix as the building of affordable units. And these are all designated. And when I go through the floor plans, they're actually highlighted as well. They're spread amongst the floors, and they're spread amongst the various unit sizes as is required. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed plan at grade, and this plan has developed nicely with all of the input from the various town agencies that we received, starting with the fire marshal, who wanted us to keep the building 10 feet off of the northern property line where the Metro North is, and 5 feet from the southern border where the pediatric center is. And that was very intentional, that the original design had the building situated differently, and we listened to the fire marshal on that point. And one of the other big site plan moves was we slid the building back off of Unkawa Place to allow for a parking space, which is hatched on the lower left, which is a designated parking space for both deliveries, which, as we all know, are all day long these days between UPS, FedEx, et cetera. And so that space would be where the UPS truck and FedEx would pull in and out. And for another town agency's comment, trash in the mornings when trash is picked up, the hauler would actually pull into that space and then walk to the trash room, which is in the middle of the parking garage. It says trash room, and they would wheel the containers out from below the building to the dedicated space in front of the building. And to point out further, that space, it doesn't have a building above it, so there's clear height for large vehicles to pull in there. And in addition to trash and deliveries, that would be where a moving truck would park when someone's moving in and out, and that's very convenient to the entry lobby and the elevator of the building. So to go to the layout of the parking, we basically have one single curb cut, and I might point out there are currently 2 curb cuts on the lot. So we're combining that into a single curb cut that will be a 2-way ingress-egress that is compliant with a 24-foot wide aisle, which is very comfortable for going in and out and pulling in and out of what is a double-loaded parking scheme. It's fully loaded along the lower portion of this plan, and that as we get towards the upper portion, there are 2 required handicap spaces at the entry lobby. So someone that needs an accessible space pulls right in, walks right into the lobby, into the elevator. And there's a few more parking spaces, 5 of them loaded along that edge there. Obviously, this is an interesting geometry on this site. It's a flat iron shape, and I hope to think that we're making lemonade out of the lemons on an unusually shaped site. To further discuss what's going on the site, obviously the lobby upper left is also a street entrance. You can see the pair of doors right where it says canopy above. So there's a covered entry along the sidewalk where one can enter and leave. That takes you into the lobby, as well as the parking lot entrance, which is completely covered. So all of the 26 spaces are covered parking in this scheme. The rest of the lobby, we've got an elevator, we've got fire stairs, and we're showing actually lockers along the upper left, which is package storage, which has become really the standard in how a landlord and a building manager deals with the large amount of deliveries that come in and out of package deliveries that come in and out of an apartment building. Instead of being strewn about the lobby or by the mailboxes, those lockers will be where all the packages are stored. And then going further down on the site, there's a second means of egress, trash room, and as you get down towards the end, we've got spaces that we're calling mechanical/storage because there's no basement on this site, as we have on the Post Road site. All the mechanical equipment, the gas meters, the water meters, the transfer switches, all the type of equipment will all be at grade and tucked away, so you won't really notice it at all. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the second floor plan, and I want to point out that there's 4 floors of residences, and the 2 and 4 are the same, and 3 and 5 are the same, and that is for 2 reasons. One is to accomplish the mix of units that we wanted, and the second was to provide some kind of architectural relief on the facades where we don't have the same windows kind of in a symmetrical pattern. So it was designed to add some interest to the facade, and I'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to the elevations and to the rendering. So basically, if you can scroll down slightly, Jim, I'd appreciate it. Nope, the other way, please. There you go. So this plan is very clearly articulated as far as 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, as far as the color coding. So there is a large 3-bedroom unit along the front of the building. Then marching along the south side, you have alternating 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms. And as you can see, highlighted in this plan are the 2 affordable units allocated for this floor, which is a 2-bedroom, unit 202, and a 1-bedroom, unit 205. So 2s and 1s along that row. And then on the lower right of the corner of the building, we've got an oversized 2-bedroom unit. And then tucked away on the north side, it's generally a single-loaded scheme, other than the 1 unit on each floor, which is the 07 line, which is a 1-bedroom unit, 947 square feet, nice size apartment. All of these units are oversized, related to standard new construction in apartments, and I design and build literally a dozen of these types of projects a year. And as I said earlier, we're intentionally have larger square footage units. And if you look carefully, there's an abundance of closet space in these units, which is almost unheard of for new construction multifamily. And we're intentionally doing that in these plans. So oversized units, oversized closets, that's literally every unit throughout. So that's the typical second and fourth floor. And if we go to the next floor plan, Jim. See, that's 3. Sorry, this is the different units. So the similarity on this unit is the large 3-bedroom on the west to the front of the building. But what happens in this plan is we have 1 less unit on this floor. So at the western end, you see an oversized 3-bedroom now instead of what was a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom. So basically, we've combined 2 units, and that line is the biggest unit in the building. It's 2,161 square feet, which is almost unheard of for a rental apartment. But as I said earlier, we really see the demand in the suburban markets and in Fairfield for larger units, for empty nesters. People selling a house don't necessarily want to squeeze into a 1-bedroom or even a 2-bedroom unit. And I also build a lot of condominium projects, and the eastern unit and the western unit on this floor would be a very typical 3-bedroom condominium that we would build in the luxury suburbs. And I take back the luxury word, because on this floor, the 3-bedroom oversized unit is actually an affordable unit to accomplish the mix of required affordable units, 12 of them in this building that we needed to have. And just to point out, the 1-bedroom on this floor, 203, is also an affordable unit. And at 823 square feet, that's a large 1-bedroom apartment. And otherwise the floors are typical. The big difference being the eastern end of the floor plan. You can go to the next floor plan, please, Jim. Okay, so the roof plan, this building has a very large roof, obviously. At the east end, we have mechanical equipment located, notably the condensing units. We do 1 unit per apartment, so there's 26 condensers down there, usually 1 extra for the public spaces. And then the rest of this roof plan is really dedicated to what we've developed as a really lovely roof deck with tables and chairs, dining areas, barbecues, fire pit, et cetera, landscaping. And we really feel this is a strong amenity for this building, as it is in our other building around the corner, and a great place for the inhabitants of the 26 apartments to go in the nice weather. Today would be a lovely day to be up there after work. And also the views from the rooftop here are really spectacular. You'll get water views, at least when the leaves are not on the trees, and the views all around here will be great. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are the east and west facades. The east facade is kind of deceiving because it's really the point of the flat iron, if you will. So the actual east facade is really just the left part of that drawing, with the rest of it being along the commuter tracks. And when you see the other facade, that'll make a little more sense. The west elevation is one of the 2 main facades that one would see. This one coming from the commuter station, coming from FTC. This would be the kind of iconic facade. And when I show you the rendering in 2 slides, you'll understand this a little bit better. But we're proposing a finely detailed light gray brick facade, and an interesting, almost random casement window pattern throughout the building to give the facade kind of a liveliness, if you will. And then in between those windows will be metal panels, so that the overarching grid, overall structural grid, is kind of expressed with the brick and the detailed brick patterns. And then within that is kind of random window and metal panel variation. At the bottom of the west facade, you can clearly see on the left side is the building canopy with the signage and the street number. And then those pair of doors is the lobby entrance from the sidewalk coming from the railroad station. This is where you would obviously walk right into your apartment. To the right of that, that blank space is the parking garage entrance. And as I said, that's a 24-foot wide aisle. Clear, it was about 10 feet clear, if I recall. And to the right of that is where that dedicated delivery space will be for trucks. Next slide, please. Right, so the south elevation is the long facade, and this borders the pediatric center on the south side. And you can see on the lower left, that's where the lobby is. We're proposing, there's actually a 6-foot tall existing white vinyl fence on this facade, which I'll talk about in a second when we go to the rendering. So in essence, you will not see any of the cars that are parked at this lower level. Originally, we were going to screen it, but then when we looked a little closer on site, there's an existing white vinyl fence. There's no real reason to screen the parking as it will already be screened. And I forgot to point out in the last slide, if you go to the top of the building, you see there's a guardrail setback along the facade, and then there is that's the parapet, and both elevator and stair access, 2 stairs go to the roof, 2 stairs for fire code and elevator for convenience go to this roof level. And you can pull ahead to the next slide, please. Right, so this is the north elevation, which basically has some solid walls, partly for fire reasons and partly because there's no apartments there. And then we've got, if you see, we have a signage that says Fairfield Station Lost. That signage is intended for, obviously, when you're on the train and pass by, you know what you're looking at. Hopefully there won't be a for rent sign there. And then to the left of that is the 07 unit line that I described. That's an apartment there. And if you go to the right of that, that's the short corner of the 3-bedroom that's along the front of the building. So that unit actually has glass on 3 sides, the west side being the long one, and the north and south being shorter elevations for those units there. Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is a conceptual rendering of the proposed building. We did update this on Friday based on the comments of the pediatric center's owner next on the right, which we've rendered a piece of that building, the red brick building there. And so we added in this white vinyl fence, which is their fence actually. And so I don't know if we have that, Jim, but there is an updated rendering showing that. But otherwise,
yeah, I'm sorry, Rich, I don't have it loaded here, but the commissioners all received it via email today.
It's the same rendering, we just added in the fence, to be honest with you. And here you can see, the idea with the strong entry at the street level. This is not quite the view from the train station because we're trying to show the long side of the building foreshortened here. But you can clearly see that the entrance is marked and is strong, that you've got clear where you're driving in and out of this building to park, and then to the right of the driveway ingress and egress is where there would be that delivery parking space. And here you can see how it goes to the property line. So in essence, that space is 20 feet deep along that line there. This slide also shows you how you don't really see activity on the rooftop, at least from this viewpoint. You do see the elevator penthouse on the left, which is required by building code and is allowed by zoning typically. But you typically would not see activity on this rooftop, depending on how far away and where you're standing. So this is a street view taken from. It's obvious where that's taken from. And I think that might be it for my slides, Jim, if I'm not incorrect.
Yep, we go to traffic after. Yep.
Yes. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Rich, before this, John Fallon for the record, before you go, could you please discuss the matter of phasing of construction based upon your experience or recent experience with the Post Road development, but how the project is going to be built and phased?
Yes, John, thanks. I meant to bring that up. So we have a very strong plan for construction phasing and construction parking, and this is also based on my 35 years of building this type of building, which is known as pedestal construction. So the first floor of this building and really the ground floor and the ceiling of the ground floor, which ultimately becomes the floor of the second floor, is known as a pedestal. And that pedestal needs to be 3-hour rated construction for the obvious reason that if something happens with an automobile below, a fire or whatever, that the residents above are fully protected with a 3-hour rating, on top of which it is sprinklered. So from a safety standpoint, the way we construct these buildings is we typically either use steel or concrete columns and then a metal deck and concrete above. That's the first thing that happens on this project, and that typically is 3 or 4 months of construction, after which there is a 26-car parking garage on this site. It's what we did around the corner at the Post Road Lofts, and it's what I've done dozens of times in my career. So we are well aware that this is a relatively tight site, but between utilizing pedestal construction and the parking that's afforded by it soon, and by using the setback on the north side of the building, which is a 10-foot kind of strip, if you will, and the setback in the front of the property, we're confident that the construction phasing parking can be managed quite well for this project. The second point is that, as Mr. Fallon mentioned earlier, my business partner, Matt Finkel, is an owner, a partner of the ownership in the Post Road Lofts and the affordable housing as part of the Archdiocese next door to it. And as such, he controls quite a bit of the parking in what is known as the church parking lot on Ruane. But we've been using about a dozen spots there for our construction parking on the Post Road Lofts. And we can do the same, and Matt has structured that. We can do the same during this project, and that project will be completed by the time this project starts. That project's slated for October 1 occupancy, and our best case start on this project, if you are so nice to approve this project later, we're planning on starting this project before the end of the year, but clearly after the Post Road Lofts project ends. So the parking that we're using in that lot could be used for construction parking for this project, and we can literally just tell our contractors, park over there, and literally walk the 3 blocks or carpool if it so may be. The last tool we have for controlling on-site parking is literally to limit our subcontractors to who can park on this site and who can't, A, and B, if the electrician has 3 trucks he wants to send to this site on a given day, we can limit 1 electrical subcontractor truck to our site at a time, and then it becomes their issue as a business to meet at a point either at their business or some other off-site place, leave their other trucks, and literally carpool as a subcontractor to this site. So those are the 3 kind of tools that we have to control construction phasing and on-site parking. Once the pedestal's built, for the duration of the project, we'll have 26 on-site spaces plus the dozen or so we've got on Ruane. So we're very confident that we have sufficient on-site parking during construction. And Mr. Fallon talked about what happens after construction is completed as far as parking.
And those are techniques that we've employed without any incident in the current construction on the post road. Is that correct, Rich?
That's correct. We've had, to my knowledge, we've had no issues with parking during construction. And I might add, there's no on-street parking on Ruane. There is on-street parking here, but it's mostly commuter parking. Maybe Mr. Galante can address that later on. But we've done just fine on our current project on Post Road Loss.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
I have a question
Before,
for Mr. Bernal.
yes, I do too. I think, Mr. Fallon, if you could just let us know when you're done, he's done, so we can ask some questions before you move on to the next witness.
I think Mr. Granoff is finished, so this would be a good time for questions of Mr. Granoff before I move on.
Great. So, Mr. Wemp, could you go back to the full screen, stop sharing? Thank you. All right. So, just so that I can get a sense and get us in line here, Noonan, Corcoran, me, anyone else? Francis?
Levy's here.
Basically everyone. I'll go around the room. Commissioner Noonan.
Mr. Bernal, I think, are you aware that there's the abutter is a pediatrician's office?
Yes, well aware. Thank you.
Okay. The construction staging and that you described and will implement, in your experience, do you believe that will hinder the pediatrician's office as little as possible? You just describe if there's going to be any impact to the pediatrician's office and operations?
Sure. My opinion, there would be zero impact. They've got a 6-foot fence on their property line with ours. We will have a full construction fence along our other 3 property lines. And if needed, and we did this at the Post Road Lofts, it was requested and we built a sidewalk scaffolding barricade along the sidewalk in front of the building. So those are preventative measures for safety during construction.
You don't plan to put a... Sorry, Commissioner Noonan, just let me jump on that one. You don't plan to put a barrier, a fence, construction fence along your property line with the 50, Umpqua, the pediatrician?
I mean, as I said, they have a 6-foot solid fence. We could certainly put a fence in front of their fence. We might want to protect their fence.
That's where I'm coming from, to ensure that even protection for their fence, but also to limit the amount of dust and debris that might be blowing into their lot. The fence I presume you're talking about is like the black mesh kind of construction fencing.
No, well, their fence is a 6-foot tall solid vinyl fence, meaning it has no perforation.
I know what it is.
So dust and dirt is accomplished by their solid fence. We could or should or might want to put another fence in front of that fence, but from a safety, noise, dust standpoint, their solid fence, in my opinion, achieves that goal.
Well,
but for the record, we're happy. This is John Fallon for the record. If the commission would like to see us put a temporary construction fence, a fence in front of their fence, we'll certainly do that. We want to be good neighbors and we want to get off on good standing with them, so we don't mind doing that at all.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Noonan.
Do you expect to, during your construction, to have to close off the road to prevent people from going into the pediatrician's office?
No, John Fallon for the record. We definitely would not do that. Interestingly enough, it's likely that the same person who built their building will build our building, just by coincidence. So we're very sensitive to ensuring that whatever we need to do we will not do anything that will in any way disrupt their activities.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Nooney, you're finished for the moment? Commissioner Corcoran.
Two questions. One is the moving trucks. When they're going in through the main entrance, that main curb cut in the 10-foot opening.
So, no, they're actually using the driveway curb cut, but they would not enter below the building. We have a dedicated space that is in front of the building.
Okay, I understand.
So we literally moved the building back in response to the town's previous comments on this point.
Okay, I understand. The second question I have has to do with the landscaping represented in the renderings. On the right of the building, it shows trees along the fence line. Are those trees existing, or are they going to be put in, or are they? What is the deal with that?
So the pediatricians have quite a bit of landscaping they've planted on their side of the fence. We don't plan on putting more trees on our side of the fence because there's only 5 feet between their fence and our building. So we plan on having grasses and perennials on our side of the fence at that point.
Well, from what I could see, your parking spaces extend out to the fence, don't they?
They do.
So there's not going to be any space for anything.
No, we left either 1 or 2 foot buffer for landscaping along that.
Now, on the other side of the building, to the left of the building in your rendering, you show trees there. I'm trying to. Is it possible that there are actually railroad parking spaces there now?
Not on our property. So there's a chain link fence that's the border, and then there's quite a bit of space on the MTA's property, probably 100 feet until the tracks. And there's a bunch of kind of random plantings along that strip.
So your rendering shows grass and trees, though, but that's not. You don't have any control over what that will look like.
Not on their side. We would like to beautify our side of the fence on that strip.
So again, I'm asking the same thing again, though. Aren't there actually parking spaces there that head into the tracks?
Beyond our frontage.
Street parking you're talking about now, correct?
Well, it's a railroad lot. Yeah, it's street parking, but it's not parallel. It's nose in.
I think I'm going to let Mr. Galante talk about street parking and what our plans are for that. But on our property, no, there's no MTA parking, obviously, on our property.
So again, my point is we're looking at a rendering that shows nice grass and trees to the left of the building. And I'm guessing that that's not the way it will ultimately look.
It's conceptual on that side of the building, correct?
Okay.
We will submit a fully developed landscape plan as part of our application, as part of our building department application. We do landscape architecture in my firm, so we're very sensitive to planting plans and making our properties look as great as they can look.
Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Francis? Commissioner Francis, you're on mute.
Thanks. The number 78 will be displayed near the word Fairfield Lost.
That's currently the plan. We haven't submitted any signage plans to the team yet.
An entrance exit on your garage, probably. Signage.
Probably, yes.
And usually we receive a planting plan as part of our package.
I don't recall if we did one yet. If we did, it's in your package. I can follow up with that after the meeting. If it's required, then we did it. It's just not in this presentation.
And then is there much contrast between the brick and the metal? It's an interesting layout. I like the variety of windows.
Commissioner Francis, we're having difficulty hearing you. I think you need to either speak up or move a little closer to your microphone.
All right.
No, still can't hear you. I apologize. I can't hear you.
Type the question.
No, I mean, you sound very muffled right now. It sounds like something's covering your microphone.
Okay, is that any better?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes it is. Thank you.
Oh.
Yes.
It was my fingers, I'm sorry. I think the building is very attractive. I like how you varied the window. And I like the idea of metal. I wondered, is there a contrast between the gray stone or
Brick.
and the metal? They look very, I almost wondered why they weren't gray and white or dark gray and light gray or something.
So
it makes sense.
there is a contrast. We're proposing that the brick is light gray, and I'm actually shopping now for the right brick because there's a lot of different gray bricks, and I'm looking for the right color gray brick. I was recently in Copenhagen last year, which actually inspired the design of this building, and there's quite a few gray brick buildings there, and I have dozens of photos on my iPhone of gray brick buildings. So the proposal is that the brick is quite light in color, and that the window frames and the metal paneling is more of a medium gray to contrast the brick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the code enforcement minutes from October of last year, and one concern that was raised by the fire marshal was limited access for fire trucks and ladder truck access being tight. Obviously, it's a tight site, 5-story building proposed, congested area next to train tracks. I have not seen the Joseph Versteeg report or letter that you referred to. I haven't seen anything else from the fire marshal following up on whether the comments about fire safety have been addressed in a new design. I wondered if you could comment on fire safety a little bit more.
Yeah, John Fallon for the record. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay,
yeah.
There I am, yeah. Okay, yeah, Commissioner, we have, and I think we can, Jim may, if he desires, get confirmation of what I'm going to say, but from the fire department. But we, as I said at the outset, we did, before and after the code meeting, have meetings with both the fire marshal and the chief. They actually did ask us and worked with us. We actually modified the location of the building, as Rich pointed out, so we would provide the access that they were looking for, that 10-foot access. So I believe that the plan that you have in front of you tonight is reflective of their comment and their input. Beyond the technical, Mr. Versteeg's letter speaks to the fact that the building and site design meet all technical requirements of all the codes he references, and they do. But in addition to that, we did work, and the fire department was good enough to take time with us, and we were able to come up with modifications that are, I think, presented to you tonight, and I think directly address the questions that the fire marshal had with regard to improving access to and on the site.
Thank you. Has the fire department commented on the most recent iteration of the plans yet?
I would defer to Jim on that. I don't know that they have. I don't have anything from them personally, but so I can't. I would think I can only tell you what I know, which is the plan that you have reflects their request that 2 or 3 meetings that we had with them, back last year. Beyond that, Jim may want to follow up.
Great. And then my second question was whether there will be somebody to address drainage in your presentation.
Yes, you're leading me right into my next matter.
We're not quite there yet. Mr. Wendt?
Just to clear up, and for John's, I just emailed the commission the Versteeg letter and an email from the engineering department regarding drainage. So to the extent you didn't have that, it was just emailed to you. And I could certainly follow up with the fire marshal's office to confirm their position on the current iteration of the plan.
Yeah, and I'd also like that follow-up, please, with the police department. There was a note as well that I was going to ask about with respect to in the code enforcement with the police department.
Okay. For the record, Mr. Chairman, John Fallon, the police department comments on page 3 of the code notes obviously speak primarily to the question of the adequacy of the parking. And, you know, I think for purposes of this record, we've addressed that earlier. I haven't had any further conversations with the police department since the code meeting. But points 1 and 2 of the police comments obviously deal with parking, and I think we've addressed that. Point number 3 was the concern about the 9-foot height limit between the garage in terms of deliveries and loading, and I think we've addressed that as well by way of the delivery area that was specified. So by all means, but I don't expect anything. We didn't do any follow-up with the police department beyond the fact that we're comfortable we have adequate parking on site.
And I would like their reaction to it. And thank you. Is the Versteeg letter that you mentioned now limited to one page where he provides his opinion that that the plan as proposed does not result in an adverse impact to a substantial public interest in health, safety, or welfare? Is that the letter you're referring to?
Yes, it's his letter dated, I believe it's March 9th, and he makes that statement, and he also makes the statement that the reviewed the architectural floor plans and the site and fire department access plans prepared for the project, and that it complies with all current and proposed Connecticut State Building Code, Fire Code, and Connecticut State Fire Prevention Codes. So yes, that's the letter we're talking about, his letter of March 9th.
Was that before or after the changes that you made to the result of the after? Okay.
Yeah, it was referenced the current. He reviewed the plan that's in front of you tonight.
I haven't gotten that Versteeg letter yet, but maybe it's on its way.
Yeah, well, I did just now, and frankly, it would have been helpful to have had this before just now. So click send and receive on your email so that you can take a look at that. Look, I had similar questions about the fire and the comments and whether there was going to be further review of that here or now. So part of what the fire, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Braven, I jumped in on your line. So you please continue. I'll wait till everybody. Please.
I was done.
Okay. All right. I'll get back around to that then. Commissioner Levy.
Yes, one question. I think on Mr. Barnhart's review of the affordability plan, it indicates that Unit 305, which is 2,161 square feet, would be an affordable unit. I saw it in the plans, but would that be one of the units along the street side, sort of the western part of the building?
Mr. Granoff? I let Mr. Granoff address that.
Jim, can you pull up that third floor plan? It's either going to be the west or the east.
All right, hang on a second.
Sorry, one is the western unit, so it's along the Unco.
So 305 would be along Umpqua Place?
305, 301 would be along Unco. So 305 would be on the eastern end of the building.
Okay. So is that in fact 2,161 square feet, or is that 870?
Actually, I do have a plan. Hold on. 305, 2,161 square feet.
Okay. And is that east or west? Are you?
That is on the western end of the building.
Okay, so that would be along the street side then.
Oh, sorry, that's the eastern end of the building.
Okay.
For the record, it's on the south and the east, that unit.
Right. Okay. But it is the larger of the 3 bedrooms, correct?
That's correct.
And that would be affordable.
That's correct.
Okay. Nothing further. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Grano? So, in looking at the comments from the fire department, there are a couple of requests for additional submittals. You mentioned one of those is recommended a third-party code review. So was Mr. Versteeg engaged to do that in response to that request of the fire department?
We would have engaged Mr. Versteeg anyway, but we you know, but it did reflect the comments. And I know Mr. Versteeg, I believe he met with or had conversations with the fire marshal and or the fire chief, who he has a very good working relationship with.
And I know that you've worked with Mr. Versteeg in the past, but I'm just curious as to the sequencing. So Mr. Versteeg was engaged after the code review and the comments came in, and
correct, because we didn't want
to respond to that request.
It was always our intention to retain Mr. Versteeg, but we didn't want to retain him until we had a final site plan, and we didn't have a final site plan until after we addressed the code.
Fair. So did Mr. Versteeg? You said he reviewed the site plan, and the materials that we have in our packet. Did he review anything beyond what is contained in our packet?
No, he reviewed the site plan, as he says in his letter, and the architectural plans that you have in front of you this evening.
Okay. So there's a couple of things in here which may or may not have then been changed as a result of that. So submittals for the elevator, fire alarm, underground main, and sprinkler systems, for example. Like, were those?
Yeah, I would defer to Mr. Granoff on that, but I think if Mr. Wendt follows up, as I said, I would encourage you to do with the fire chief and the fire marshal. I think they will confirm that those are items that would be part of the next phase of the building and actually obtaining a building permit. Those are not things that the fire marshal would be expecting now, but he was giving us, as the code notes always do, a heads up that, hey, when you come in for your building permit, these are things that we'll want to be included in your detailed building plans.
Yeah, I listen, that may be a very reasonable thing. I'm struggling with Mr. Versteeg's conclusion that the proposal complies with all Connecticut State Building Code, Connecticut Fire Safety Code, Connecticut State Fire Prevention Code, etc., if he didn't have these other materials to review and make that assessment. Like, I don't know how one could conclude that the plans comply with these various codes without the more detailed plans. That's what I
would suggest you. I would suggest you that the confirmation of compliance with those codes does not require submittals with regard to the elevator, the fire alarm, the underground main. The sprinkler system was obviously a major issue for the fire chief and the fire marshal. They asked even to require that we do install an NFPA 13 system, and we've agreed to do that. And that's part of this record. But I think it's very clear that a confirmation of compliance with state building and fire codes can be made based upon the plans you have, because they are not reliant on the items that are referred to in the code notes as number 3, for example, the fire comment number 3.
Right.
Or number 5.
Well, exactly. Some of the things that I'm looking at. The elevator needs to be sized to provide stretcher access. Has that been accomplished?
I don't know, Rich. I think that may have been an item that was addressed. That it was addressed.
Yes.
But what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, you do, because we did work very hard with the fire department, and they worked very hard with us. So I fully endorse you through Mr. Wendt, having confirmation of what I'm saying in terms of our work with the fire department and what Mr. Versteeg says in terms of compliance with the plans. I'm comfortable and confident that the fire marshal and the fire chief will confirm what I've said.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So the tree warden, just getting back to the landscaping issue, and I understand that perhaps landscaping is not the highest priority in an 830G application, but the tree warden has recommended that we have 2 shade trees in the parking lot, 2 flowering ornamentals along the public right-of-way, and he'd like an indication of the species to be made in the application. And I think maybe left of the building or some place where we could find a spot for these things.
I would suggest that, and would stipulate that we have no problem with a condition of approval that would require the post-approval submission of a landscaping plan for your and staff's review that will address the comments of Jeff at page 2 of the code notes. That's not a problem.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's there was a little ambiguity about that left side of the building, and we appreciate the effort to do that.
A landscaping plan is needed.
Yeah, no, that's right. So okay, in terms of the phasing and the construction, it's nice to hear that we don't think that there's going to need to be any street closures or interruption in traffic flow on Ruane and Post Road. Was there ever a time that the intersection or the road needed to be temporarily closed, or anything like that? Any incursion on the neighboring properties or anything like that?
Mr. Granoff?
It's been very smooth, no issues at all.
Okay, great. So I'm thinking just in terms of minimizing, and just to get back to the fence again, the protection. I'm thinking in terms of minimizing the possibility of intrusion on the neighbors, and it's a tight spot, right? I mean, and the building is being built, basically to the edges, right? So to prevent dust and debris from coming over their white fence, or even onto their white fence, coming onto cars that are in the parking lot there next door and the like. So how might that be addressed in the sort of construction rigging or fencing?
I'll let Mr. Granoff elaborate, but as I said, we are not at all opposed to temporary construction fencing along that property line that would inhibit further, noise, visual impacts, dust. I think that's a fairly, Mr. Granoff, you can jump in here, but I think I've seen that fencing on many projects. It's sort of you can describe it better than I, but we again, that could be a condition of approval.
Thank you, and that's what I'm asking for. If they could just talk about that for just a moment, just kind of describe what that might look like.
Yeah. So
would you do that?
Yeah, I can do that. So their fence is 6 feet tall, and the first floor of our building is 10 feet, and there's 5 feet from our building to their fence. We could literally do a strip of plastic to contain all the dust on our site. I could do a sketch for that and submit it as part of this approval. We'd be willing to commit to that. So in other words,
and Mr. Wendt, and John Fallon for the record, Mr. Wendt, am I correct that fence, which isn't really a fence, but that construction could be higher than 6 feet. In other words, we could put up sort of plasticized barrier during construction to attenuate dust, for example, and that could be 8 feet?
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes.
Okay, so I just, I think we can do that.
Okay.
No
Very,
problem.
very good, very good. And then, the parking and cars and such, I'll wait for Mr. Galante. Okay, thanks very much. I appreciate your taking the time to answer a few questions. Any other commissioners?
Thanks, Rick.
Any questions for Mr. Granoff before we let him go? Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. A few other comments before I introduce Mr. Galante. Obviously, as we know now, because we've talked about it, we did have a code enforcement meeting on October 22nd, 2019. Those code minutes are at page 27 of my informational volume there. We believe we've addressed all the comments and recommendations of the code, and are comfortable that our building construction, as well as our fire, our building construction exceeds or complies with all the building and fire code requirements. Commissioner Raymond mentioned the matter of site engineering. I would want to point out that with us tonight is Mr. Jason Spath and Mr. Michael Company. They did the site engineering with regard to this matter and are here should you have any specific questions about the site engineering. But as Jim pointed out, and I think he sent to you, Jim did receive an email on March 25, 2020 from Laura Pooley with this file. I will not read it to you. It's 2 paragraphs, but it does confirm her review of the revised drainage report plans, that the stormwater attenuation now provided meets the 100-year flood event requirements. She discusses the confirmation of soil testing and soil characteristics. She talks about the plan calling for biofiltration. You can read that. It's part of your record. So we are very comfortable that we've, again, worked very carefully with Ms. Pooley, and she's confirmed for your record that we are in compliance with all of her requirements. We did receive, I should point out, WPCA approval on January 22nd, 2020. So they have formally approved the project and the connection with regard to that. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mike Galante. Obviously, we did submit a traffic analysis and report with regard to that. And Mike's going to provide you with a summary of that and answer any questions you have. Michael.
Thank you, everyone. Mike Galante, Hardesty in Hanover. And before we get started, I just want to let you know that I'm actually sitting in my car because my battery was going dead. So this is the first time I think anyone would do a presentation from their car. But I'm not driving. So what I'd like to do, and Jimmy, if you could put up those graphics, the first one is really my figure 2, which is an aerial of the study area. And I'll just kind of summarize and go through as we're looking at this. This is in the report itself, but obviously the site is located on the east side of Unclewood Place, near the train tracks, if you will, and a short distance from the train station. We looked at Unclewood Place as far as it's about 31 feet in width. It has parking, 2-hour parking on each side, not along each length of each side, but in certain sections that is shown on the plan and referenced in the report itself. We conducted traffic counts last September when everyone was taking the train into the city or Stanford. And then we all know that that's changed drastically in the last couple of months. But the traffic data was obtained when, patterns were typical, if you will. Traffic counts conducted near the site frontage because this is a small traffic generator. We didn't include other intersections nearby. But the traffic volumes on Unclewood Place near the site itself is about 135 vehicles during the morning peak hour and about 165 vehicles during the afternoon peak hour. The peak hours really reference the patterns near the train station. For example, the peak in the morning was 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning, and the peak in the afternoon was 6 to 7 p.m. at night. So it's certainly different from other locations that are not near or top of a train station. So the activity as far as volumes reflect the train station nearby. Includes commuter traffic, drop-off traffic, and so on to the commuter parking lot that's stretched along that side of the train tracks. We took our traffic volumes, we expanded it to a 2021 design year. We increased traffic by 0.06% per year. That's based on Connecticut DOT information, which is available for each town in the state of Connecticut. And now that we have had this virus issue, traffic volumes are significantly lower at the moment. And I would say that they'll increase, but over a very long period of time. If you go back to, 10 years ago in 07, 08, 09, traffic volumes dropped around 25% for that, and they stayed pretty low for quite a while and increased over time. Back then it was 2% per year, and now we're at 0.5% per year, even before the virus hit the area. We've looked at accident data, which we obtained. I'm sorry, Jim, you can go to the next. You can skip the next one. That's just the traffic volumes that I mentioned. This one here is the accident data obtained from the Fairfield Police Department for a 3-year period. We focused on Uncourt Place along the site frontage. There were no reported accidents in the 3-year period. There were 3 reported accidents on Uncourt Place, essentially from the site frontage to the Post Road intersection, and 3 of those accidents were actually rear-end collisions. We did include accident data for the Post Road intersections with Uncourt Place and Old Post Road, and that over the same 3-year period had 33 accidents. But obviously the volumes are much higher on Post Road as opposed to Uncourt Place. We provided that information really for reference purposes. Kim, you can go to the next slide. This slide just simply summarizes the traffic generation for this type of development. It's 26 units. We obtain our traffic estimates for development of this type from ITE, Trip Generation Handbook, as we always do. And this development of this type and size will generate 10 trips in the morning and 12 trips in the afternoon. Now, we typically would and could take a 20% credit for transit use, and I'm sure at this site there'll be some transit use, meaning someone will walk out the front door into the train station. Even though the text of the report says we took that credit, we really didn't take the credit. We left that traffic in there. It's obviously very small credit when you apply 20% to a very low number. So we added that site traffic to the traffic patterns along the site frontage. And I think, Jim, the next slide may show the patterns at the driveway. And we estimated the site traffic would be 60% to and from the Post Road, and the remaining 40% going underneath the Uncourt Road overpass, if you will, by the train station building itself, by the pizza place, if you will. So we added that traffic, and we projected all of this to a 2021 design year for the morning and afternoon peak hours. And we did our analysis of the driveway itself, standard levels of service, measuring delay at the driveway itself. The delay in the measuring was level of service A and B, morning and afternoon, A in the morning, B in the afternoon, because the volume is slightly higher in the afternoon. And this type of driveway would certainly be stop sign controlled. As Rich mentioned, it was 1 lane in, 1 lane out. We would have a stop bar and a short stop or a short single or double yellow center line to control the 2-way traffic flow in the driveway itself into the garage or underneath the building itself. As part of the development of the driveway, yes, there are 2 driveways serving the site today, but we're removing 3 spaces in front of the site in order to create this driveway with the radiuses that are needed to accommodate the movers in and out of the site itself. That's essentially a summary of the traffic report. It's obviously a limited report because of the size of this development and the number of intersections included, and I can certainly answer any questions you may have. Now or later, since I have a charge.
Thanks.
Okay, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So I have a question. Does anyone else have questions for Mr. Galante?
I have questions for, but you couldn't hear me before.
Yes. Commissioner Braun, you're back. And apologies that you're also...
Well, I was talking through my phone, but now I turned my computer back on.
Yeah. Well, your video, for some reason, doesn't... I don't know if you turn the video off, but so I didn't know that you were trying...
I can see myself.
Yeah, because we can't see you. So we didn't hear you.
You can't?
Didn't see you. No.
I could see myself.
Okay. So you have questions for Mr. Granoff, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question about...
Sorry. So let's
the code review.
Okay. Go ahead.
I don't have a code review. Did we get a code review?
It's
in the book.
in the link?
It's in the book.
I've got it, Mr. Fallon.
Page.
So the link, the hyperlink that's in the agenda is to the applicant's materials in order, their portability plan, and then there's some other documents.
I have that, the master.
Code review. Starts on about page 27, 28. Pages that we were referencing earlier were on pages 29 and 30. He's got little handwritten numbers in the upper right-hand corner of the pages. You see that?
Okay, now I see it. I didn't see it before. I thought it was, okay.
All right. Do you have questions about the?
Well, I haven't read it yet, but I have a question about number of bedrooms. So there's 46 bedrooms and only 26. Maybe that's more for Mr. Galante anyway.
I don't know. What is your?
Consider to be an overage, a parking overflow problem, because I think it's all 2-hour parking on those roads. And then you have 10 spaces that are on that curve that I think the public parks in.
I can address it. I don't want to be
overflow parking.
I don't want to be redundant to my comments earlier, but I would only reiterate them. We have 27 on-site parking spaces for the 26 units. Because it's a transit-oriented development, because the marketing and demand will be focused upon people who are commuters, because it's not anticipated that we're going to have many, if any, multi-vehicle occupants, because it is similar to the parking ratio established on the Post Road development that you approved. We have 13 units there at 13 spaces. That, by the way, is 8 one-bedroom and 4 two-bedroom units. So for a total of 16 bedrooms, we did have that, that number of units. And again, we're comfortable. We won't have an overflow problem with guests because of the fact that they will be generally there in the evening. And we have a lot of commuter parking available to us. And in addition, so we're very comfortable. We wouldn't make this kind of an investment with regard to a situation where our residents paying rent couldn't park. They're not going to rent it then. But above and beyond that, in terms of the legal issue, it's simply, we're very comfortable with it as a practical matter. We want you to be comfortable with it as a practical matter, but it's adjudicated as not an issue that implicates public health and safety.
Well, that's not exactly true, and you're referring to a prior case in which, on those facts, the court held that. But that is not to say that parking as a rule is not an element of inquiry that is appropriate.
Right,
I agree. Consider. But you've said that now a couple of times, indicating, a rule has been decided that it's not appropriate for us to consider into,
I would prefer that my fundamental parking argument. This is the first time, Matt, you and I have had a Zoom exchange, so it's exciting after all these years of our exchanges. But I would prefer that the matter of the parking be considered and adjudicated on the practical points that I've made. I think that if we believe in transit-oriented development, this is a classic location and case for that, and we are absolutely comfortable and confident that the 27 on-site parking spaces that we have will be more than sufficient to accommodate the needs of our tenants.
Right, and I think it's enough for you to have made that argument and try to.
And that's the primary argument I want to make.
Right. Okay. All right.
So to be clear, there are 46 bedrooms.
There are, yes, as I said at the beginning, what we have is a total of 12 one-bedrooms, 8 two-bedrooms, and 6 three-bedrooms. So if you do that math, I'll take your word, but I assume that's what it adds up to.
And it's hard to tell from the diagram, but any kind of either emergency or service vehicles will not go under the building. They will park in front of the building because it's only 9 feet tall. Can someone address that?
And
in front of the building?
Mr. Grant may want to comment, but I will tell you that the matter of access for emergency vehicles was in our review of the matter with the fire marshal and the fire chief. Rich, do you have anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I can add that the code requires that a handicap accessible vehicle is 9 foot 6 inches, and we comply with that.
Thank you.
Fire trucks go under the building if they have to?
Absolutely.
And so emergency vehicles can go into the building, but delivery or service vehicles will park outside of the front?
Yes, there's a dedicated parking space out front for deliveries and moving trash pickup.
I don't see it on any of the pictures.
If you look at the site plan, which is the ground floor plan, Exhibit C,
okay,
go to the lower left of that plan. There's a shaded area, and it says 9 by 18 loading space.
And I assume what people use when they're moving in or out with moving vans and stuff.
That would be where a moving van parks.
Look at the schematic, it doesn't really show, you know, the picture of what the building is going to look like.
Well, there's the building setback from the property line, so if you look at the rendering on the right side, the space is there. It's that gray brick wall in front of that. There's 11 feet to the property line. From the property line to that brick, there's 11-foot space.
Okay. Commissioner Braun, any other questions on those issues for Mr. Grau?
No.
Okay, thank you. So that I can get a sense, are there members that wish to ask Mr. Galante any questions about parking and traffic and the like? Raise your hands. Okay. So, very good. You didn't mention it in your remarks, Mr. Galante, but, and I'm familiar with the area, and I think I know the answer to the question, but did you assess sightline distances and all?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We absolutely did. Looking at this driveway, we, of course, have 2 driveways today. We now have 1 driveway located, we'll say, towards the Sudley property line, if you will, on Unclewood Place itself. Unclewood Place, and I'm sure you've been there, on the east side of Unclewood Place from Post Road up to the site, has lots of driveways and 2-hour parking in places more towards the Chelsea Restaurant and Post Road intersection on the east side of the road. On the west side, there's other parking that's midway, if you will, more towards the site and the curve in the road going underneath the Unclewood Road overpass. If you look at the placement of the proposed driveway and look south towards Post Road, you have about 400 feet from the proposed driveway to the intersection with Post Road. That translates into a speed of 42 miles an hour. So I did it a little differently. I said, well, what's the highest speed we can accommodate? And it's 42 miles an hour. And I can assure you, no one's driving 42 miles an hour, fortunately. In the other direction, coming out of our proposed side driveway and looking around the curve, if you will, towards under the overpass, that's a very low speed movement. That's about 10, I've actually measured 9 to 11 miles per hour around that curve. and the measurement, the sight line is about 100 feet, 110 feet, looking out of the new driveway, across the curb, if you will, in the road, to that first parking space that's perpendicular underneath the bridge itself, or just about under the bridge itself. So that translates in that 110 feet translates into a speed of about 10 miles per hour. So it's a completely different speed analysis, if you will, because of the road alignment. So I'm comfortable that the sight lines from the road, from the drive itself, are adequate, or more than adequate, certainly towards the post road, and appropriate and adequate looking to the, if you will, to the right and under the bridge itself. So that it may not be documented, but that's pretty much what we evaluated and looked at some time ago.
Okay, and just to clarify, there are not documents that speak to those calculations and have those numbers.
No, not unless it's shown on the site plan. But in my report, we don't have it because we're pretty clear that we didn't have any sightline issues with this condition. There are a lot of existing driveways that obviously there's no parking, and you can see towards Post Road, and the distance is about almost 400 feet. So with that measurement and knowing the road itself, we didn't really get into much detail beyond what we've obviously done in other projects.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I see that Commissioner Gordon's got her hand up, and
yes.
Commissioner Noonan has his hand up electronically.
No, that's right. Where do I see that? I was looking for that earlier.
I don't think you have it, since I'm the host. You can't see the hands raised.
Aha.
Good to be the host.
When I gave up the host.
You gave up a lot.
That's it. So who's that's why I was asking for the hand. So Commissioner Noonan was one, Commissioner Gordon's the other? Okay, Commissioner
Correct.
Gordon, go ahead.
I just have a quick thing to mention. I'm not sure if how this plays into it at all, but Fairfield, the company, hasn't been mentioned at all, and I know on the night shows there are a lot of. So maybe that's not relevant, but I just thought I'd bring it up.
Well,
I think,
go ahead. Someone's speaking.
I think it gets to the point that, as I said in my remarks earlier, anytime you have a private parking area proximate to the railroad station, you have to be mindful of protecting the interests of your residents and your tenants. I know that's a concern of our neighbors next door, and it'll be a concern of ours, so that we'll have to protect, if you will, our parking area to the benefit of our tenants during all times, but certainly during those times when there might be a special event going on, and that's just a fact of life in that area of town.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Noonan, I think, had a question.
I do not.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Like literally wave your hand, or if you see, somebody's got a cat.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I see your cat now.
Sorry.
So you can see me?
Yeah,
That's somebody else's cat.
No, Commissioner Braun, we still can't see you on video. Sorry about that.
Weird.
So moving along, Mr. Fallon.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. If it's back to me, I think I'm ready to summarize. One thing I will say is I did send, just so it would be part of the record, we've done a lot of these 8-30Gs together over the last few years, and I always at some point stand there and I go through all the legal standards regarding 8-30G. I think to some extent the chair likes me to do that a little bit, just so people who might be listening in who are not familiar have some sense of context and what the legal standards for these applications are, and the manner in which the Planning and Zoning Commission approaches them. But I didn't want to spend this evening going through 5 or 4 pages of this case and that case. So I did take the liberty, with Mr. Wendt's permission, of sending a memorandum to you, legal standards regarding 8-30G, and it just cites a bunch of cases, which I've cited to you before. And if there's no objection, I'll just probably let it go at that. I think the thing that's important to state, and this is not to tell the commission, because the commission is well aware of this, but so that members of the public and this record are clear, is that when it's an 8-3G application, the burden is on the commission to prove that the reasons cited for any decision to deny the application are supported by sufficient evidence in the record that establishes that the decision is necessary to protect a substantial public interest in health, safety, other matters the commission may legally consider, that such public interest clearly outweighs the need for affordable housing, and that such public interest cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the affordable housing development. And the court has also, in the material I cited, made it clear that that burden requires more than a mere theoretical possibility of specific harm to the public interest if the application is granted. The record has to demonstrate that there is, in fact, evidence of a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result in the application as proposed, and if it's granted. In some cases, we all know candidly, those standards are difficult, I think, because some cases are different. As the chair pointed out, every case rises and falls on its own facts. We feel very comfortable and confident, and we hope you will agree, that this is not one of those cases. This is a wonderful location for a proposal brought to you under 8-30G. It's going to provide both affordable and market rate housing at a location for a large segment of our population that's exceedingly desirable. It's doing that in a town and in a place where we take great pride in the vibrancy of our downtown, and these units, the proper mix of both affordability and market rate, just like what we're doing on the Post Road now, is going to only make this community more vibrant, more special, more the envy of so many other communities around us. So here, I think the application of those legal standards does not create the quandary that sometimes is created based upon other facts. And I hope that this commission, as you have in the past, and to your great credit, will agree with that, will foster the continuation of much needed diversity of housing in our community, which includes affordable components, and will also be benefiting our downtown during a time of municipal / national recovery, where such development is going to be increasingly important as we seek to recover from these unprecedented times. So that's really our presentation. Pleased to answer any questions that the commission might still have or the members of the public might have, but we hope you will favorably consider this application. Okay. And we really enjoyed being part of this flagship, and again, your efforts to keep people's business moving forward during times when it's not easy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So I do have a couple of things. We mentioned it earlier, and I think you were going to get to drainage. And I don't.
Yeah, I thought, I didn't mean to be cavalier about that, but I did reference Ms. Pooley's email to Mr. Wendt of March 25, which I think you have. She confirms everything I would say, but certainly if anybody has questions about any aspects of the drainage proposal, as I said, Mr. Spath and Mr. Batula are in this meeting. But I did reference Ms. Pooley, and we did address, we met with her after the code minutes. We did revise our drainage plan, and I think her memo, her email to Jim of March 25th speaks for itself.
Okay. Very good. In terms of the affordability plan, we had some suggestions from Mr. Barnhart in his letter, and we also had some from Mr. Reber, comfortable with revisions to the plan in accordance with their comments?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Reber was kind enough to email me his email during the proceedings, and he's always very courteous, and we appreciate his support. I haven't had a great chance to look at his email because I've been here doing this, but I would strongly believe that we would want to deal constructively with Mr. Barnhart's comments and his in terms of, obviously the statute requires comparability between affordable units and market rate units. That doesn't require cookie cutter in terms of square footage, but we'd certainly be willing to work with Mr. Barnhart and Mr. Wendt, and through Mr. Barnhart, Mr. Reber, to address, to deal with those comments, and I think we can get to that very well. I just can't say much more because I haven't really looked at it that carefully.
Sure. All right, very well. Any other members of the commission have any other questions for the applicant before we move on to the public hearing, to the public comments, rather?
Are we going to get more details from the police or fire about all the code review points they made?
Yes, I'm going to follow up with both.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And that can happen after the close of the public hearing. We are entitled to engage with our agencies to, consider the application and ask questions and get information from those town agencies. Okay. Then thank you, Mr. Fallon. With that,
thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
We will we'll move forward to the public comment portion. Mr. Wendt, did you get any emails from people who?
I did not. The only email I got was from Mr. Reber that I forwarded to you in lieu of his commenting, but Emmeline can unmute the conference call now, so you can ask if anybody that's on the conference call wishes to speak. They just simply state their name initially, and then we can try to capture that in the
unmuted
roster.
Right. So, welcome members to the public comment portion of our public hearing. If you would like to be heard on this application, we're going to have to figure out a way to get a queue up. So I guess just please voice your interest in speaking, and we'll start keeping a list. Are there any members of the public that wish to be heard on this? Well, I'm not hearing anything.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. We have someone. I appreciate that. Who? Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Harry Mercurio at 100 Twin Brooks Lane, Fairfield, Connecticut.
Thank you, Mr. Mercurio. Please go ahead.
I would, if after the 26 spaces and based on the number of apartments that there are, if there becomes a problem, how do you solve this later on after this thing is built?
Well, thank you for that. We'll direct that the question to the applicant, who can address that on in the context of their rebuttal. Anything further?
Yes, being a property owner in Fairfield, I am concerned that the parking situation is going to overflow into our parking lots.
Okay. Which parking lot is that? Is it, this is the PHA. Are you the owners of the 50?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I believe Mr. Mercurio is referencing the piece the corner lot, the corner of the Post Road and Unclewood Place, that has the new barber shop and Chelsea restaurant, has a parking lot that's adjacent to the pediatric center.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate your concern, and if the applicant wants to address efforts to enforce parking restrictions on their property and with their tenants on rebuttal, that would be great.
Sure. This is Matt. Let me answer that question.
We're not. I'm sorry, Mr. Finkel. We're in the public comment portion, and unfortunately, given this scenario, this environment that we're in, it's a little difficult to follow the traditional protocols, right? So even though that member of the public now is in comment and posing those questions, we need to just kind of receive all the public comments, then we turn it over to the applicant for their rebuttal, and to the extent that you want to address those questions, you should.
Understood.
Okay, thanks. So, Mr. Mercurio, thank you very much, and I'll leave it to the applicant to address that on rebuttal. Anything further?
Yeah, thank you. That is primary concern because we don't think that parking is adequate.
Very good. Understood. Okay. Any other members of the public wish to be heard? And Mr. Mercurio, you have my thanks for being, a member of the public that is actually speaking on this so that we know it's working. We know that our system here is actually...
It's been a hard, long thing to listen to this, I hate to tell you.
No, I feel your pain. Imagine trying to be on the other side of the table running the show. No, thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it. Any other members of the public out there that wish to be heard on this? All right. Going once, going twice. Very good. Well, with that then, I will turn it back.
Muted.
Right.
Thank you.
I think I've spoken twice on my analysis on the parking, but I think Mr. Finkel wanted to make a comment, so I would defer to him to add anything in response to Mr. Mercurio's concerns. Matt?
Yeah, thank you, John. I really think it comes down to the marketing of the property and the target residency population. And, we understand that these buildings, both this one and 1675 on the corner of Ruane, are located in parking constricted areas. But we also understand that the nature of the residents that we're targeting are either commuters or empty nesters. We're not targeting families, and having said that, we would never discriminate against a family, but we're not targeting families. We're not targeting multi-vehicle residents, and it's also going to be made very clear up front when we're leasing units that the expectation is that all parking spaces are assigned, and if you don't have an assigned space, you cannot have a car, right? So as long as those expectations are made up front, of course, there's scofflaws along the way, and we'll have to deal with that. And in our rules, in our leases, there is a series of house rules around parking that will need to be enforced, and not adhering to those rules will be a lease violation. And a lease violation is something that you can seek to remove somebody from tenancy over. So, I think all those things together, especially with this property where it's literally adjacent to the train station, I think it's a manageable situation. I think the fact that this is a transit-oriented property, targeting commuters, targeting a population that wants that type of lifestyle, and explaining to them up front what the expectations are will help mitigate the problem.
Thank you, Matt. Again, Mr. Chairman, we thank you and your colleagues for your attention, interest, and patience, and we hope you'll favorably consider this, I think, very exciting application.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you, everyone. And with that, I will close the public hearing on this item, and I will adjourn the meeting. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you all very much.
All right,
Bye.
we're turning off the recording. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.